And we're live, presumably. Hello, everybody, to the first ever HFES Telethon.
Here we go.
Here we go. We got a completely packed schedule today. Oh my gosh, some of the speakers that we have, amazing. Camille, I don't know if you want to kick things off here.
Sure.
We have a lot to get through, though.
We do. So I'm going to be brief, which people who know me know that that's actually a pretty big challenge. So we're doing a membership drive. We want all kinds of new people to join us and see all the amazing stuff that we're doing. And we figured we'd do a Jerry Lewis style telethon, but not all weekend. And for those of you who don't know what that is, look it up on YouTube. Changwon, when I first
Oh no.
idea, half the people I was talking to never had any idea what I was talking about. And and have some of the amazing stars of HFES available to chat with some of these stars and also sign up for membership with some amazing discounts. And so we're giving it a shot. We'll see how it goes. I'm excited just because I'm going to get to sit and visit with people that are amazing and that I love to talk with. And we've already got some people that have come online to chat with these folks. And so I'm going to be in the Zoom room. And so if you're wanting to talk with these amazing people that we have scheduled, come join us in the Zoom room. And yes, Changwon's pointing to the QR code. But in the meantime, we have some speakers lined up and that are going to give short talks and then just talk about their experiences with HFES and why they've been members for a long time and why you should. And so I'm going to turn it over to put you all in these capable hands of Changwon San, who is an assistant professor at Texas Tech University and is one of the bright stars. And 20 years from now, he will be one of the ones that everybody wants to hang out with. And Nick Room, who is the host of Human Factors Cast, and we're so happy and privileged to have him helping us out with this effort. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you two and get to see and hear from Gary Klein, and I'm so excited about that.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you, Camille. Yeah. As Camille said, welcome to the first ever telethon. A couple of ground rules here. This is, I think, going to be a little bit more than the telethon. Like Camille said, we're going to have some amazing guests here throughout the 2.5 hours I think we have scheduled. So stay tuned for everyone who will be joining us. I think also, a couple things to mention here as you're watching us on any one of these platforms. I think we're live across several different platforms here. I got YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn. There's a couple other ones out there. So please, if you are watching and have questions for our amazing presenters today, please go ahead and drop a comment into the chat or the comment section wherever you're watching or listening.
Yeah, drop a chat.
Yeah, and that way we can bring those questions forward to ask them after they've done their presentation. Changwon, what's going on, man? What should we get right into it and bring Gary on? Or
oh yeah,
or
well, first of all, I'd like to say a few things about this event. I mean, this is the first of its kind that we are doing in HFES. So, well, this is kind of like climax of the membership drive going on this week. So again, the members are the blood and flesh of the organization, right? We exist because of them. We do all this work for them. So we always need new people. Definitely, we need to keep the existing members, but definitely we want to reach out to new folks, who know human factors and ergonomics, or who don't know human factors and ergonomics. But we need to spread the word, right? We need to reach out to those people. So I hope this telethon could be an effective way to do that. But again, this is the event. So I really welcome all of you, and thank for taking time with us today. So let's welcome our guest today.
All right, let's bring him in. Mr. Gary Klein, welcome to the telethon. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to be talking about today?
Right, I'm going to be talking about the stories people prefer.
Amazing, the stories people prefer.
Right. So let me explain why I think that's important. dawned on me during a collaboration I did about 20 years ago with a researcher named Danny Kahneman.
Dan Kahneman. Yeah.
Danny was the one who, he and his colleague Amos Tversky pioneered the heuristics and biases approach.
Hmm.
And Danny knew that I didn't like that approach, but he had this concept of adversarial collaboration. Let's bring,
Adversary column relation. I like that.
let's talk to people who we don't usually encounter, people who have different views, and see whether we can find common ground. And we started this kind of collaboration around 2005, shortly after he won his Nobel Prize. And we worked for a couple of years to see if we could come up with an article, and we actually did. But in the course of doing that work, it became clear to us that we prefer different stories.
Hmm.
And you can say that people are rational, they use logic, that's the way they think about things, they have ideology. All that's true. But underneath all that, I think, is the stories that we like to hear, the stories we like to tell. And Danny and I discovered the stories he liked were stories about errors people made, stupid things people did, namely the kind of biases people showed. And it wasn't just stories about other people behaving stupidly. He and Amos loved stories about themselves where they had done something that was really foolish. So those were the stories that Danny resonated to. But I had different stories that I liked. I like stories about expertise, about people seeing things that others don't, about people coming up with insights. And whereas Danny liked stories of experts falling on their faces, I like stories about experts being insightful and really clever.
Right.
And that was maybe one of the fundamental differences between us. So there was a real contrast. Now, I joined the Human Factors and Ergonomics Society almost 50 years ago.
Oh
Back,
my.
it was just a Human Factors Society, and it was a good home for me, and it has been a good home now for almost a half a century. It's a good home for me and a good home for my community of naturalistic decision making researchers. Uh, it was the place where Micah Ensley started the technical group of cognitive engineering and decision making. So that gave us a place where we could coordinate and work together. And under Micah's leadership, as the first head of that technical group, we started the Journal of Cognitive Engineering and Decision Making. So I really have a great gratitude for the Human Factors and Ergonomics Society. It provided us with a platform for the work that we do. And as I said, my mindset is the stories that I like to hear are about expertise. And it seems kind of obvious and straightforward, but then there's actually a war on expertise that's been going on. There are 5 communities that have been attacking expertise. And Robert Hoffman and Ben Schneiderman and I have written about this war on expertise
Hmm.
that is kind of frightening and very unsettling. Are we going to be able to handle this? Are we going to be able to do anything to win that war? Anybody who is interested in what we can do to win that war on expertise, there's going to be a webinar October 22nd. And Robert Hoffman, Ben Schneiderman, Micah Ensley, Brian Moon, I'm also going to be on that. The 5 of us are going to talk about what it might take, what it can take, what it will take to win the war on expertise. So, what are we up against? Well, let me tell you a story. Back in the mid 1980s, I did my first work with firefighters to
Hmm.
find out how firefighters can make effective and safe decisions under time pressure and uncertainty. And to our surprise, we actually discovered something. We discovered a model, the recognition prime decision model, that explained how they could do it, that showed how they could use their expertise. Very exciting for me. And that model has held up now for so many decades. So how do I tell people about this research that I did? Well, I looked around and I said, let me send in a paper to the Judgment and Decision Society, the big society around the world on judgment and decision making. They certainly would be interested in what we had found. So I send in my paper, and to my astonishment, it got rejected.
Oh.
They had no interest in hearing about it. Well, that was a blow. I was crushed. And I looked up the program for that year for the next conference, and there was a session on naturalistic decision making. That's the session my paper should have been in, but they already have a session on naturalistic decision making. Well, I couldn't resist. I went to the meeting. It was in New Orleans. I wanted to hear what they called naturalistic decision making. I wanted to see what I could learn.
Mm-hmm.
So down I trek. I'm sitting in the audience. It's a packed room, and there's three speakers. One is an economist looking at various data sets that seemed reasonable. One was a psychologist who said, I studied naturalistic decision making because I ran uh, physicians. I ran 7 MDs in my study, and I gave them a task. And the way the task went was this person with symptoms A, B, C, and D could have disease 1, 2, 3, or 4. Now, if a person has disease 1, the probability of showing symptoms A and B was 20%, and he just went on like that. And then he turned to the audience and he said, you know, I gave them this task. Every single physician turned to me with a look of disgust on his face and said, this isn't about medicine. This is about statistics. And each one walked out of the office. And with that, the whole audience erupted in laughter, including me.
Mm.
I realized everybody else in the audience was laughing at the physicians, and I was laughing at the researcher for thinking that this had anything to do with medicine. And the third presenter at the conference was an esteemed researcher, and he was studying wildland firefighting. We were just doing a project on wildland firefighting. What did he have? What did he learn? Well, his paradigm was one that he ran with college students, and he had a grid, and he had something called a fire, and one of the entries in the grid, and the probability of it spreading to the next one was X%, and to the next one was X%, and you had to figure out what to do about it. This had nothing to do with wildland firefighting. There was no topography, and this was totally irrelevant to the world that we had people had an actual forest fire. 6 mountains were on fire, and he's showing me a grid with probabilities of spreading from one to the other, and my heart sunk as I listened to this, and I realized this is what they think is naturalistic decision making. This is not a place that I belong. Where I belong is with the Human Factors Society, where there are people who are concerned about how do people actually make decisions? How do people engage in firefighting or in medical decisions? And so that's the reason why I feel so loyal to the organization. Now, recently, I became interested in studying insight and how people develop insights.
Insight.
And there's actually a paradigm to studying insight, and it goes back a century. Graham Wallace in 1926, 99 years, close enough, published a book about insights, and he described a model about how people form insights. You encounter the preparation stage, working on a problem and getting stuck and getting frustrated. Then comes a period of incubation. Then comes a flash of illumination, and then you verify whether it's accurate. And the research community, akin to the Judgment and Decision Society, loved this model, and they set up laboratory paradigm called an impasse paradigm, where you give people toy problems like the 9 dot problem to see if they could solve it and what it would take and how to help them and how to interfere. And that's been going on for decades. That's the way they've been studying insight. But I really wanted to know where the insights come from. And so I put together a database of 120 cases of actual insights, not toy problems in a laboratory. And this was the first naturalistic study of insights. And we found that there's a variety of forms that insights take, but more frighteningly, this impasse paradigm that's been the vogue in academic circles only accounted for 29 out of our 120 cases, only a quarter of the cases. So the community that's been claiming to study insights has been missing 3/4 of the kinds of insights that we came up with. Let me give you an example. One of our cases was these 2 cops are sitting in a squad car. They're stuck in traffic. They're just sitting there waiting for the light to turn. The car in front of them is a brand new BMW. One of the cops, the rookie, who's riding along with his partner, watches the driver take a drag on a cigarette
Okay.
and then the ashes. And he says, "What? Who flicks the ashes in a brand new BMW? That doesn't make any sense." They light him up, pull him over. Sure enough, it was a stolen car.
Oh.
So that's an example of an insight, but there's no impasse. They weren't working on a problem. They noticed something that was odd. It sparked their curiosity, and then they moved forward with it. Another example, Martin Chalfie. He was a biologist. He was working with worms that happened to be translucent, and he was studying protein synthesis, and he would do whatever manipulations he had, then he'd chop them up and do the assay, and that's the way the work was done. And one day there was a lunchtime seminar at his university, and to be a good citizen, he attended. And he's listening, kind of listening, thinking about his research. But then the speaker talks about a Japanese researcher who had found that jellyfish have a protein that gives off green light when you shine ultraviolet light on it.
Hmm.
And he says, wait a second, this protein lights up with green light when you shine ultraviolet light on it. I'm studying translucent worms. If I can get this protein into my worms, I can study protein synthesis and development while the worms are alive. I don't have to chop them up. Where's the impasse? There was no impasse. It was just a connection. He sees the connection. He wins a Nobel Prize for his work. So there's all kinds of examples of insights that we found that were not based on impasses, that were extremely important. So as you can see, the stories that I like are about our strengths, not our weaknesses, and about the ways that we're able to make discoveries. And I'll be giving a workshop on this on October 13th at
Right.
the Inspire meeting, and I'll be talking about a more comprehensive and useful model of insight. I'll be debunking a lot of the standard advice about gaining insights. I'll describe better strategies, and I'll be presenting an insight audit for organizations. And I'll be telling lots of stories about people who made discoveries and a few stories about people who could have made the discovery but did not. I hope I see some of you there.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Gary. So, well, yeah. Well, first of all, I pay my homage to you for keeping HFES, home for many people for half century, like 50 years. I think I have never seen a person like you, who was in, who stayed in his home for a long time. I really appreciate that. You made a huge impact. Actually, I read the paper, failure to disagree, right? Talked about it. the conversation with the Kahneman, Dr. Kahneman, and then, well, to me, I think there was really kind of crossover research, right? You cross the boundary of the traditional human factors and talk to an economist, who won the Nobel laureate. I think that should continue. But I have a few questions for you. So this is my personal question. So you are chief scientist in Shadowbox LLC.
Right.
What does it mean by Shadowbox? Not the lunchbox, not the black box, not the sandbox. What is it?
Shadowbox is a company that was established in August 2014
Mm-hmm.
to help people make better decisions and to gain expertise. And it's like, in part, it's like shadow boxing. You're not really engaged in anything that's physically dangerous, but you're learning your skill. But it's also like shadowing experts.
Oh,
And so it's a technique. It's based on scenarios. We give people tough scenarios and we ask them, what would you do here and why? And then we say, and here's what the experts would do, and here's their reason. And the advantage is the experts aren't there because it's hard to have experts to pay them, have them available when you're training, but we got their answers to the same scenarios. And so you want your answers to match the experts, but the real learning is what were the experts seeing that you didn't see by looking at the rationale statements. So you're seeing the world through the eyes of experts without the experts being there.
oh, gotcha,
Well,
gotcha. Thank you very much.
perfect segue. Speaking of experts being there, let's bring on another expert. throughout this telethon, we'll bring in a panel of excellent human factors personalities and wonderful folks to be panelists throughout the day. So, Debbie Bain Davis, welcome. You heard Gary Klein talk about the stories we prefer. What did you think?
Oh, I loved it, Gary. It was great. And I want to pick up on something that you talked about, which is how things have changed at HFES over the years, starting with the name. It used to be Human Factors Society. I was on council when we actually made the name change. And there's a side story there, which I can tell you sometime. It'd take too long for this. But I also love the fact that you talked about the fact that the cognitive engineering decision-making group didn't exist. And it was created while you were there. And I want to talk about the fact that technical groups and the affinity groups, things are being created and things fade. So things that people are no longer working on, some of the tech groups have merged and are more focused now. New things have come on. The affinity groups are relatively recent. And I think in the last 2 years, we've had another technical group or two come on. So I want people listening to know that we are trying new things and we try to grow as the areas of interest grow. And this podcast is one example of that, trying to do something different to reach out in a way that we haven't done before. So I'm really quite excited about that.
Wow. So yeah, well, Gary shared, with us that the CEDMTG has been created, Mike Ainsley, and then you remember that. I didn't know that until you said that. Well, actually, we changed our name, from HFES annual. Actually, we are using it both, but Aspire, I think, they might have come as the surprise to many people, but to both of you, what would you want to say to growing kind of like people or in members of the society, when they try to make something new, when they try to launch something new, because there might be some kind of pushbacks, criticism, oppositions. But what do you want to say to that?
Okay, so my experience is that the society is extremely open to trying new things and going in different directions. When Micah gathered a small group of us together and said, let's start a new technical group, we didn't know what that meant. Well, Micah was savvy enough to know what it meant, but maybe she was fielding problems. I never experienced any pushback. What I experienced was enthusiasm. If you have a large number of members who are interested in this topic, why not have a forum for a platform for sharing the enthusiasm and the excitement? So I think that's part of the vitality of the society.
Awesome. What about you, Debbie?
I would agree. I think there's a perception that we don't change very frequently, but there have been lots of new things created over the years. And as Gary says, we do have bylaws that we can't go around, but we have operating rules, which are kind of rules of thumb for how we operate day to day. And it talks about how to form a new technical group. So if you want to start one, there's a guideline for you. You can look and see what it is. And if you meet the criteria, there's no pushback. So I think that the society has been very receptive to new ideas and to new directions.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And then actually, I have a question for Debbie. I know, you are the president-elect. So, as a president-elect or the president of the society, what changes do you have in mind? And can you share a little bit of, that with us today?
I don't have specific changes in mind. I do know that there are people who have not joined the society. There are a lot of people who are student members, and we don't convert them when they go out into their career. And the question is why? I believe that for some of them, we're not offering things that they find as useful or useful enough for the money they pay to be a member. So it's a challenge because we can't reach out to our members. They've already decided this is a good place for them. So, how do we reach out to those who aren't current members? This podcast is one way that we're trying to reach out to new people and find out what is it that you need from us and think about changing our offerings or adding new offerings so that we can continue to be the place that Gary and I started out in, and we started at roughly the same time, and reach the new generations that are coming along and have come along that we've lost.
I see. Yeah, that's excellent. I really appreciate that you said that. Okay, well, I have another, question. Could be might be, the last question for Gary. So again, right, you spent 50 years in HFES. So what advice would you like to offer to other people in the society to make next 50 years, the HFES, to become a home for many people?
Oh, it would have been good to tell me that question in advance. So I'm just going to swing wildly at this. Um, there's so many opportunities for networking within the discipline.
Hmm.
So you can have meet with colleagues and people. The sessions are so exciting, and they're well uh, curated so that you have the leaders in each field talking about what's going on. So it's very tempting to just stay in one niche. But as I look at the programs, I think I want to go to that session and the other technical groups. So it's as a decision researcher, it's a tough decision to know how to spend my time and where my time is best used. Um, so I often finish a conference wanting to look at the other papers and maybe if I had an opportunity, if we recorded the sessions, I'd like to hear the sessions themselves and
Hmm.
have an easy way for me to plug into a few of the sessions that I didn't have a chance to attend. Because the cross fertilization, like the story I told about Shalfie, sitting in a lunchtime seminar and hearing something that he had never even imagined, those are the opportunities for insight that are offered by our meetings and by our journals.
Awesome, awesome. Yes, yes. All right. Well, I have a similar question to Debbie. So, what kind of advice would you like to offer to the members and also maybe the students or your colleague, to make the next year or this year, next year more meaningful to everybody? So,
My students will tell you that I'm a broken record on networking. I
Oh,
believe that one of the things the society offers and attendance at the conference offers is the ability to connect with people, find people who are interested in the same issues that you are, so that you can bounce your ideas off of them. I think it's really difficult for us to make great progress without having the kinds of conversations that Gary talked about, right? Having your opponents argue with you and tell you why they think you're wrong, and listening to why they think you are. And so we need to connect. And I do think that with technology, we lose some of those connections. And there's something wonderful about having an opportunity to work with others. So I would say build your networks, and that will build the society, and that will build the value to everyone.
wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much. So again, I think it's time to say thank you to these folks and wrap up our first kind of like session. And but Gary, but if you have anything to say about your workshop, well, we'll give you a short time. So would you kind of advertise your workshop?
I think it's going to be an exciting workshop. It's a material I have never presented before. We have a new model about insight that we think is more comprehensive and useful than what currently exists. And we'll be able to provide a variety of ideas for gaining insight. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Great. Okay. So if you guys, want to gain an insight, please attend Gary's workshop. And also, if you want to chat with the HFES, please scan this QR code. Also, we have upcoming Aspire conference. So there's website going below, right? So please visit our website. Please become a member if you're not. And then there will be ample opportunity for networking. And then please make HFES your home. So, all right. Thank you very much, Gary and Debbie. So to see you next time.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you so much. Let's bring in our next guest here, who's going to be a disembodied voice, I think. Please welcome Peter Hancock.
Let me ask if you can hear me well enough.
We can hear you great somewhere.
Where is it?
Sure.
Where's the Peter?
So, this is a wonderful illustration of why technology should actually do what I ask it to do and not have me clicking like a mad mouse to try and find some esoteric menu that I've no idea about. I don't want to battle with this. And so that's a really good reason why people should join the Human Factors Society, right? Because if you actually did it right, or if this system did it right, even I could do that. So you've asked me to talk about some things in relation to the society, in relation to why I joined and why I'm still a member. And I'm going to talk a little bit about a sort of debating myself on a recent article that I published. So let me start off with the bigger picture. I think we have to start with the bigger picture. It's pretty obvious to anyone whose brain is still working that we are facing some really quite prohibitive problems right now. It's interesting to me that on the day that I was born, there were only one person on the planet Earth for every 3 that there are now. So there's about somewhere in a region of hovering towards 8 billion people. That's too much. Planet can't stand that. You either get a bigger planet, you get fewer people, or you try to find a way out of it. 1970 is a good date. In 1970, the famous Club of Rome report, mediated by Rand and some folks at MIT, just basically said, well, we'll tech our way out of it. Don't worry. Everything will be fine. We'll just tech. And to a degree, that's what we did and what we still do. And that's why it's not a disaster right now. But we are on the edge of certain existential problems, the symptomatology of which we can now essentially see. If thou hast eyes to see, well, let them see. So we begin to see instabilities in things such as, for example, the climate track. You begin to see all the things that are representative of stable engineered systems or natural systems going into instability. And so the real question for any scientist out there is what you're going to do to it. So I look at it like this. You have humans and you have sciences where humans meet humans. That's just fine. I like psychology, humans talking to humans. You have sciences where humans talk to humans, maybe dead humans. Well, that can be anthropology, forensic science. I'm happy with that. I don't cavil at other people doing what they want to do. There are other sciences where engineering is talking to engineering. So there's some great scientific work done about where the rubber literally meets the road. Civil engineering meets automotive engineering. No problem with any of those things. But there are critical sciences where the human beings meet the technology. That's us. We sit at the heart of that wedding between two things that are traditionally sort of incommensurate. Human beings aren't considered like machines, although we've had that analogy around often enough. Human beings we see as something different. Animals we see as something different. Machines we see as something different traditionally. But now we're beginning to change that aspect of the world. We're beginning to think that those lines of demarcation, and so the lines of study of that demarcation are beginning to evaporate a little bit. One of the most interesting things I've seen across my career is how much human factors is actually done, but never actually called human factors. So there's a human factors and ergonomics society, but boy, do I see a lot of people who are doing good human factors. They've never heard of the society. Well, the part of this podcast is trying to get them to see that this society is at the heart and at the crossroads of those things. We do deal with science and art together. We do deal with engineering and psychology. We do deal at a crossroads. And because we're at a crossroads, we have a problem. And the problem is that we don't fit well, particularly into academic institutions, which haven't really fundamentally moved on much since Aristotle. So Aristotle was a fine chap. I'm sure I would have liked to have met him and shake his hand. And he probably had a really good coverage of all the knowledge that was around at the time. But when he divided it, he still understood all of it. Nowadays, we don't have a structure like that. We have departments of X, and pretty much we have nice people who say, let's do interdisciplinary work. But as soon as you actually get going with interdisciplinary work, they say, well, why aren't you doing things for the department? So that's a problem with human factors, and it still is a problem today. Where do we sit in institutions? It's not only institutions of higher learning, it's institutions, in this case, of industry, of military, places in the commercial sector where you find the human factors person is sort of a little bit of the odd man out, and then he or she becomes the bridge between things, but they spend their time being the bridge instead of what human factors should actually be doing, which is leading the way. So I want to talk a little bit about some remaining minutes that I have. I published an article. Here's a nice puff for my article. It's called "Are Humans Still Necessary?" It was meant to be a little bit controversial. It wasn't meant to be passed over with a nod that it was another experimental investigation of factor A on dependent variable B. I'm sort of past that stage myself now. I'm just asking questions that are more generally important. And I think the question is, we're in existential races with all sorts of things, but the one I'm interested in is the existential race for work. So let me start off by framing my argument by putting my premises down on the table instead of making it a general statement. And the specific statement then is, are human beings still necessary for work? I think they're still necessary for themselves, and my wife will tell me that she's still necessary for me. So I think at a human level, we all agree we'd like to hang around for a little while. But what about our work? I'm looking at Nick here with a nice set of headphones, and he's got a microphone. And I'm pretty sure I can replace him with some sort of low-level large language model. It won't be as good as Nick right now, but you know, in a world where we try to sell each other the thing at the least possible cost, I could probably replace a Nick room, and I wouldn't do super well right now, but you know, in a year's time, if I've got a chance to improve, particularly if I've got Nick himself guiding things along. Lo and behold, I don't need a Nick anymore. I've got an artificial Nick. Now, my artificial Nick can be sent around the world with a tap of a button. My artificial Nick doesn't get tired. My artificial Nick doesn't get bored, as he obviously is now. My artificial Nick isn't under stress. I mean, all those good things. I'm not paying for artificial Nick's medical expenses. I'm probably not even paying artificial Nick. So there are many dimensions of work where if we adhere to a purely capitalist motivation, we will be overtaken rapidly. And rightfully so. If you believe in a capitalist drive and A is cheaper than B, then get A. I mean, you don't get B anymore. You might do if you were if you've got some sort of great interest in human beings, or you want to claim to be a humanitarian organization, and people do. More often, those people actually lie about wanting that because it's a better sell than the reality. But now we begin to see that work is being replaced sequentially and quite rapidly. Now, the first thing that you have to talk about before you talk about anything else is the speed at which this can happen. Human beings sit on their nice little seats, as I am right now, believing that everything has to happen at sort of human speed, okay? They really have this intrinsic belief that everything ought to go along on their time scale. Well, it just doesn't. If you want to investigate this, I strongly suggest a bit of scuba diving or snorkeling, because you'll find things happen real fast underwater, real fast. In fact, so fast you'll be stung before you're even aware there's something there, because the time scale isn't driven by the same thing. The time scale in things such as artificial intelligence need not necessarily be driven at a human rate. And so we have a sort of like a negotiation denial that we put in place is, don't worry, we'll be able to negotiate this somehow. We'll be able to have a situation whereby we can reason with it. We can talk even to each other while this goes on in the background at speeds we can't even begin to sort of comprehend at an empathic level. And then it will happen and turn on a dime. That's something that human beings don't seem to be particularly sensitive to right now. They better get sensitive to it soon. Okay, mass stuff. Mass stuff is interesting. All of a sudden, your fingers are really quite important. The robotics guys are working real hard to do work like fine motor coordination, but it turns out that's really quite difficult. Doing things like opening pill bottles that are not purpose designed for robots, but picked up by robots is really a challenging task. It requires a lot of world knowledge, but it requires a lot of, in this case, dexterity that is very hard to put into an engineering system, not that people are not trying. And so all of a sudden there's a skill, human beings have a skill, we'll call it opening pill bottles, difficult pill bottles. Well, who thought that might be a job? Well, it might be a job because it can't be easily replaced. So the Oxford Brookes study of about 5 years ago lined up a sequence of human professions, varying from physical labor all the way down to what we call high cognitive work that we claim to be doing right now. And lo and behold, they gave out a variety of professions they thought would be overtaken. Some of those have already been overtaken. Some of them much faster than were predicted. So human work. Well, optimists. I've heard an optimist mentioned by the venerable and good friend, Professor Klein. He talks about a good friend, I would consider him a friend, Ben Schneiderman. Schneiderman is among those people who is a strong optimist for this area. He would claim, Schneiderman would claim, that the introduction of AI actually burgeons the landscape of work. It increases it. It allows us to have combinations and collaborations that we could never foresee before. And that is reasonably true for people like us. Okay, so I'm going to look at Nick again just because he's there and such a handsome guy. There he is now waving at me. Nick's a pretty technically advanced guy. Yeah, of course he's going to be ready with the technology. Of course he's going to welcome some of those things. But I got to say this, and it might hurt Nick to know this. Nick can't be regarded as everyman, right? And the great problem with academics and professionals and scientists is they sort of class everybody else like themselves. And it's only when you go out into the mall on a day-by-day basis that you realize not everybody is tech savvy or wants to be tech savvy. Not everybody enjoys their work or thinks it's a vocation, as opposed to a thing that they have to do, a dirty, dangerous, and really unpleasant occupation. And it's those people I'm concerned with. I'm not concerned with Ben Schneiderman. Ben's a nice guy, a very intelligent guy. He's retired, he's enjoying himself, and he's contributing good science. So I'm not concerned with people like Schneiderman. I'm concerned with our good friend. I think in America, he's called Joe Sixpack. In England, he's called the man on the Clapham omnibus. And if I knew what he was called in Hong Kong, I'd be a happy guy. But it's the same thing. It is not the attack on our area, although it could be. It's not the attack on our area that I worry about. It's the mass of people who are doing work on a day-by-day basis that is fairly rote and very open and vulnerable to these changes. What are we going to do? Does work burgeon without bounds? In other words, do we keep increasing the sum total of work in order to suit the sort of capitalist system? As we see from our developments and symptomatology that I talked about, the capitalist system has little personal care, but it does like the engine to keep going. So it's not that it cares for Nick Room at all, or Peter Hancock for that matter, but it cares that there is enough cognitive power to keep the engine of productivity going, as though that is the criteria. Now, why should you join the Human Factors Society? Because we are human-centered approaches. We value the idea of the human individual. That is, we care for the bespoken person, but in understanding that, as you lay down your hard-earned dollars to come and join us, by the way, we're great fun people. I really would recommend that. But as you do that, please understand you're probably right now, you're pushing uphill. Now, it's not that we will always push uphill. It is not a necessary state of humanity that we have to engage in ever profitable capitalist motivation. We can make changes. The real question, the only question, the question that H.G. Wells actually asked in 1900 is it's a race between ignorance and education. And it's a race between exigency and our own self-preservation. So today I wanted to argue that human beings are necessary for work, not that I believe it, but I think it's one of the best things that human beings can do is to argue the opposite side that they are against in order to understand the arguments therefore. So the first thing to say, and the first thing to say to my students or whoever is listening here, is that if large language models still work in the fashion that they've been created, they are an aggregate. They are an aggregate. They lump together things. They are nominal systems that look to emphasize the first moment of the distribution. So what they're doing is they are pushing things together. That's okay in the replacement notion that we are talking about in terms of work. But what we really need is expansiveness. We need that second moment of the distribution. We need variability and we need creativity. And right now, variability and creativity are two of the dimensions that human beings can still very much bring to the table. I'm not talking about creativity in the same way that grandparents laud their 3-year-old child for a water-based painting on the refrigerator. Merely slapping stuff together in a haphazard manner will certainly be much better done by AI than human beings. But principled creativity, that is teaching the sort of insight that Klein just actually talked about. Can you tell me any pedagogical program right now in which creativity is the formalized goal of that particular program. If you look at, for example, the diminution of the arts in the United Kingdom, you'll see that those things are beginning to be defunded. And the whole point about that is that when you are dictated to, as a lot of our societies are, by the economic drivers that are rammed down our throats every day, that's not a thing that you want to feature too much. In fact, if you're looking for a human cog in a larger system, you don't want creativity. You certainly don't want it to do anything unusual and unexpected. So human factors and ergonomics can lead in the way that they can talk about the dimensions of human beings that are unique, bespoken, unusual, and they can encourage those things not only in their own students, in their own professions, but their own environments as well. That's a difficult row right now because we all throw up our hands, and I'm afraid collectively we're doing that on several fronts and saying, well, I'm not sure I can make a difference. I think the thing about human factors and the human factors society that keeps me coming back is at least it seeks to make a difference. It seeks to make that difference, and I am affirmed by those people I meet and talk to each time I have the privilege of going to the meeting, to understand that there are dimensions that we can bring in the society and the discipline and beyond, and the practice of human factors that will push us towards that direction. Now, those are some sort of what I would call global trends and tendencies. The great problem is that when you critique those things, you tend to point out details and smaller elements, saying this doesn't accord with X, this doesn't accord with Y. I've given up those sort of arguments. But as I looked to try and understand the antithesis to my own proposition, I wanted to emphasize that I'm not going to hark back to some of the earlier parts of our notions of function allocation and uniqueness of human beings, but I think we have in our discipline the opportunity to emphasize those things and to say, for example, that skilled movement with the fingers is still an extremely interesting skill and capacity that human beings possess that we can't replicate. One of the great problems is as soon as you see a skill that we can't replicate but might render profit, pretty soon someone's chasing that as hard as is humanly possible. The other thing, the final thing to say before I stop talking and start listening, we're not short of human beings. There's 8 billion human beings. Sometimes we don't need to replace people with stuff, okay? Sometimes we don't actually need to do that. I see, for example, that there is a new move to replace plate umpires with artificial intelligence in the coming season. The idea is it's already being tested in the minors, and lo and behold, I'm sure they're calling the strikes and balls. But I rather like the people behind the plate. Okay, I like the man or woman in black. I like it when people kick dust over each other and have a bit of a dust up. In fact, you can argue in relation to, for example, the Premier League in football, that injecting variability in the error by the officials is actually an interesting dimension of the entertainment thereof. So at heart, Premier League football, other football, is an entertainment. And if it's completely rote, how much longer before your Robot 11 play my Robot 11 in an empty stadium while the robots are on the side of refereeing? I don't want to see that. Do you want to see that? So if you don't want to see that, please come and join the Human Factors and Ergonomics Society, and we will have a good libation, and we will talk about such issues and see how best we can resolve them. I have something on there I can't see, but what I'm going to do now is be the best thing that a speaker can do and shut the heck up.
Great.
Let's bring a couple of more folks in here. So here's Tony Andre, Andy Amata. All right, we got a full panel in here now.
Wonderful. Well, actually, I have a question to Peter. So, Peter, are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here if you can hear me.
Right. So, well, you cover many things, and then that was very insightful. And then, one of the things I found was kind of like identity of the human factors in ergonomic society, right? The identity. We are at the center of the human technology frontier. So I think that there was a recent controversy about the sort of kind of fate of the ergonomics and human factors, right? We are kind of getting behind the companies and tech industries about automotive vehicles and things like that. So what is your stance towards that controversy, the fate of our discipline or profession, and what do you want to say to the other fellows and peers to keep our identity apart from the other societies?
So I'll give you an answer with respect to cybernetics to begin with. Is that if you look at individuals who are part of an organization, and the organization, for example, is let's say a manufacturing organization, and the manufacturing organization, albeit either through the line of chain of command or sort of the ethos of the organization, will say, hey, we're employing you in order to get a return on our investment. So what happens is that each individual within an organization like that, and the organization within the ecological culture that it belongs to, is doing self-optimization. They are looking to optimize what they can do. The real problem is that as you do self-optimization within any entity or social group, you begin to force a general propensity towards maladaptation at the higher level. And so in terms of answering your question, I would frame it like that and say, I perfectly understand. If I go to work for the US Navy and I take the government shilling, they have every right to believe that I will do my very best towards the goals and missions that they put in place. So the real question, I think, or the answer, is the degree to which we are members of a scientific society versus we are members of a larger society. And I think one of the great problems that I have, and one of the things I have tried to do across the years, and it's gone down to nothing, is that if you look at our American organization, we have a clever system. Not that Montaigne didn't actually think about it, but we have a clever system called checks and balances. So we have three elements that everybody on the who's listening to me should understand. So we have the executive, we have the legislature, and we have the judicial. The problem is science doesn't enter into any of those. So the legislative can make stupid laws. We will repeal the law of gravity. The executive can confirm that and say, yes, none of the US military will believe in the law of gravity. The Supreme Court can say, yes, that is a fair law, we can do that. But then when you drop the knife on your foot, the real problem is you bump into obligatory reality. So what we need in this country, in fact, what we need in all countries, is an obligatory seat at the table for science, not advisory capacity, an obligatory capacity. And you need to be able to say that you cannot do this because X, Y, and Z. If I need to illustrate that with current examples, then people are not paying attention to what's going on, and I don't need to actually do that, I would hope, even from yesterday's news. So the point is that science needs to do that, and then somebody needs to mediate between that science, whose handmaiden is technology itself, and the people whom it affects. And that's human factors again.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you for sharing time with us today. And then now we have Andy and Tony with us today. So, well, hello, Andy and Tony. So, sorry for making you wait. So, could you introduce a little bit towards our folks? So, Andy.
Hi, I'm Andy Yamada, and I've been a member of HFES for a long time. Not quite as long as 50 years, but I've been here.
Welcome. Okay, hi, Tony.
Hi, I'm Tony Andre, I've been a member since I was a graduate student in 1987, and have been involved in the organization ever since. And some of my, best friends in my life and people I cherish the most, I met through the society. People don't talk about that enough. There's the journal articles, the conferences, but I mean, seeing Andy and hearing Peter, that just made my day. And that's what a society is about, as much as the professional content of it.
Can I just say one of the reasons you ought to consider joining HFES is this is the only place you can hear someone like Peter Hancock talk about Montaigne, Aristotle, Gary Klein, and people that you've never heard of or thought about for a long time over a drink. And I guarantee you, over the course of the night, he will change his position on you, and you may never know it. But seriously, the fact that he is talking about work and the question of are humans actually necessary is very important, because this is what we do. We are in the business of looking after the human's best interest, to make sure that humans' well-being is protected, at the same time try and make systems more effective. I think that's a critical combination that what we do, of looking at the technology, and I think, as Peter said, not this kind of, I wish there was no such thing as gravity. There is gravity. And so we have to deal with that and acetaminophen at the same time. So I think this is where you can meet people and talk about the realities of science and work. And in fact, there may be a job for a pill bottle opener if the system doesn't leave leftover allocation for humans and say, why can't humans open this bottle? Well, if we don't, there is that job. And I don't think that's our concern for human well-being. That's really looking at leaving the human out of it until we don't have a cheaper option to do it. So I think Peter makes some good points. And I agree with Tony. Some of my best friends are in this society, and I look forward to seeing them, having a drink with them, and actually arguing with Peter so that he can buy me another drink.
So Tony, so you said you joined the society when you were a student, and then what was the main reason that made you kind of stick to this society for a long time?
I alluded to it, the people and the generosity of the people, and especially people older than me. I won't name names. That adopted me, that mentored me, that didn't have an attitude that if you're not a professor 20 years in, I'm not talking to you. It's a society where there is no strata in terms of personal interactions and networking. And I was just like, wow, like I can't believe I'm at a bar playing pool at a conference with these famous people who are so learned and accomplished, and I'm just a grad student, and back then with long hair and ripped jeans.
Oh, really?
And, and they didn't care. They're just like, hey, if you're one of us, then let's talk, let's interact. And it was like a second family with like instant, hundreds of really smart and entertaining aunts and uncles.
Wow.
And that's what really kept me in. I'm from a large family, like, biologically. And then HFES just became, this other family that I've had, since 1987. And everyone, you got to belong to a family professionally as well as your biological family. And if you're in the UX, usability, ergonomics, human factors field, you'll find no better nurturing family than HFES.
Wow, yeah, that's very like impressive story of you. And Well, and I also appreciate that, all the contribution you made to the society. So speaking of which, I know that you founded at, kind of led the, human factors conference and symposium for a long time. Now it's one of the main, places where people present their findings about human factors in healthcare. So, but I guess there might be some kind of difficulties and challenges when you first started the conference. And can you share some of the kind of stories about your efforts and what did you do to make the conference so successful?
I just applied the build it, they will come model. The healthcare had become the largest technical group in our society. And I just felt, what a better way for human factors professionals to lend their expertise other than to help save lives, right? And I just felt it was time for a conference devoted to the complexity of all the human factors and ergonomic issues in healthcare, and for that family to come together and not be distracted, by other families in aerospace or automotive or environmental design. And all I did was ask the society, like, can we build it and see if they come? And they said, yeah, let's try it. Let's try it on a small scale. We trust you. And I wrote a prospectus. I was present at the time, but I had other people look at it and say, am I insane, or is this, a valid thing to attempt? And they all thought it was a great idea and contributed to its formation. And we started in 2012. It's grown every year because people need each other in a profession. Like, you could be successful, have a great job, but your life will not be fulfilled if you don't get to interact with other people who have the same passion. At least I believe that.
I completely agree with you. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Andy, well, as you know, this is a part of our membership drive this week. So, the purpose is really to, reach out to, potential members and advertise what we do and who we are, the benefits of joining the society. And then you spend quite a bit of time in the society. So if someone is hesitating to join the society, what would you say to the person?
Well, if you listen to some of the people on this show, I think it's hard to be indifferent about it. Just the way Peter in our little talk here poses the question, it's really challenging to think about, if not us, who? And if you're interested in getting involved in making humans a real part of our future, this is the place to be, because LLMs will do a lot of work, but they cannot do everything. And this is the place, I think, where we stand in the interface between humans and technology. And not only that interface, but the entire organizational context in which we build this technology. I think it's really important. And I can think of no better place to be than right here. And if you want to do it, this is the place.
Exactly. Okay, thanks so much. Okay, so I think we're going to bring another guest right now. So, but Tony or Andy, do you have anything to say to our folks in the podcast? Anything to advertise?
Just the society. Join us.
Look below. Okay, we have a website. Please visit our membership webpage and look at those information. Please join our family. Come with us and enjoy all the benefits with us.
Can I just say, I'd like to invite everyone to join HFES, and if you come, Peter Hancock will buy you a drink.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay. Putting Peter
Thank you, Peter.
Putting Peter on blast.
Everybody have your words.
A lot of drinks happening.
Gotcha. I look forward to that. Okay. Well, thanks
guys.
Yeah.
Excellent. Drinks on Peter. All right. So let's thank you, Andy. Thank you, Tony. Let's bring in our next round of panelists. I guess we're going to start with Nancy. So Nancy, I think we have you as a disembodied voice. Can you hear us? Are you with us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, yeah, we can hear you great.
Okay.
So yes, hi Nancy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well.
Great. So can you introduce yourself to our folks here?
Yeah, I'm Nancy Cook. I'm a professor at Arizona State University in the Human Systems Engineering program. I'm also senior, that means old, scientific advisor of the Center for Human, Artificial Intelligence, and Robot Teaming. And I've been in the society for, I think, about 37 years, probably the same length as Tony.
Wow, that's a long time. By the way, do you know Nick? Do you know Nancy? Right, Nancy is in Arizona, and Nick is in Arizona. So I think you're in the same
Yeah.
kind of state.
We've talked before, Nancy. Now I'm local. I'm local to the area.
Where exactly are you in Arizona, Nick?
Oh, I'm in Chandler, so I'm pretty close.
Okay. I'm in Mesa. And it's still very much summer here.
It is. I'm tracking what, like 100 something today.
Wow. Okay, so Nancy, well, this is a part of our membership drive this week, and we want to hear from you, your overall experience with the HFES. What really made you kind of keep being the member of the society? What's the kind of like most brilliant memory, for you with the HFES, and maybe if you have any advice to offer to the young people, or existing members, or even potential members. So first of all, so can you share, your maybe personal or professional experience with the HFES? So
Yeah, so I joined when I was at Rice University, my first academic job, and I was encouraged by Ken Lockery, who was very active in HFES, to join. Also encouraged by Bill House, so some of the titans in the field. And I think I agree with what others said. I have had such rich experiences, formed friendships that have remained with me over the years. I'm lucky enough to have high school friends that are still I'm still in touch with, and that's really a special thing. But this is equally special because these are professional friendships that have developed over
wow.
the years, and I think a lot of people undersell the importance of society because we have all of this social media and we can stay connected on social media. I think that's only to a certain extent. There's nothing like a face-to-face sit down and have a drink with someone and show them pictures of your grandkids kind of connection. So it's been very, very useful for me.
Wow. So yeah, I guess there might be some kind of generational gaps, for the time you have been with the HFES. So can you I don't know, take an example of the difference between like the conference back then and conference now? You show that, right? You meet your friends and you show your pictures, but can you share some of the older stories with the HFES?
Yeah. Hold on, Cheng Wan. I think we should probably get to Nancy's talk here first. We have a couple presenters this time slot here,
Yeah,
so I want to make sure we have time for everybody.
Okay. I can talk more about this. We can go on forever, actually, but I'll talk more about this later. I was going to talk today about human artificial intelligence teaming, and I just have a few thoughts. I don't want to go on for too long here to allow other people to talk, but I think I'll be saying, strangely, a lot of the same things that Peter Hancock said about and Andy said about humans and the value of humans, which I would never think back 37 years ago that I'd have to be talking about the fact that humans are valuable. But I'll start with the question that's somewhat controversial. Can a machine be a teammate? A lot of people have preconceived notions of what that means, so I'm going to unpack it a little bit for you. There is a large and rich literature on teamwork and teaming. I've been studying teams of humans for over 30 years, and most recently I started putting AI and robots on a team. But by definition, a team is a distinguishable set of two or more agents who interact dynamically, interdependently, and adaptively toward a common and valued goal or object or mission, who each have been assigned specific roles or functions to perform, and who have a limited lifespan of membership. And that's that definition's been around since 1992 when Salas et al. Published their article. So I'd like to draw from that definition and that literature and talk about what does it mean to take teamwork seriously when you talk about human machine or human AI teams. I think that there's a lot that has to do that you can draw from the human team literature about team composition and role assignment. Who does what on the team? What are some of the processes that make human teams good, and can they be also replicated in human machine teams? How do we develop or train a team, and how can we effectively measure a team? All of this we can take, at least as a starting point, from human teaming. Now, this is controversial, so I want to lay out what I don't mean by taking teaming seriously for human machine teams. It doesn't mean that the machines are in control, because control is an orthogonal issue on a team. It doesn't mean that the machines are human or human-like. A lot of people will say, well, if you can't take your teammate out to lunch, it's not a teammate. I would say that that's not in the definition that I just read to you. Also, we have really good animal teammates and human dog teams and human marine mammal teams, and they make really good teammates. And you might take your dog out to lunch, but it's not human or human-like. And also the machine, I don't mean that the machine is not human-centered. In fact, I think designing it to work well as a teammate will increase its human-centeredness. So what else can we take from the team literature? I think taking teaming seriously means that teams, human teams, they're heterogeneous. People have different roles and responsibilities. And here's one of my biggest, I guess, claim that I really don't think we need to be replicating humans in the form of AI or in robots. I think there might be very, very few exceptions to that rule. So I think people are enamored with humanoid robots. They're enamored by AI that can do the exact thing that they can do. And first of all, I'd say that large language models, generative AI, is not doing it the same way that you do it and can't do everything that you can do. So I just wish we would stop trying to replicate ourselves in AI. I know it's a bright and shiny object when you go buy a humanoid robot, but really we need to be asking the AI or the robot to do complementary tasks that can make us even more productive, tasks that either we can't do or we don't want to do. So maybe the AI does big data analytics and visualization for the human decision maker. And the human is the one making the decisions. The human also has creativity, has social and emotional intelligence, moral intelligence, and these are things that are not replicated now in AI or in robots. And I would predict that they're going to be hard to replicate. Taking teaming seriously also means that effective teams understand that each member has a different role, and they avoid role confusion, but they also back each other up as necessary. And so we did a study once where we had an AI working with 2 human team members, and it understood how to do its task, but it didn't have any idea about the team task. So AI needs to have, as a result, the whole team was pretty poorly coordinated. So AI needs to have an understanding of both the task and the teamwork associated with that task. Also, effective teams share knowledge about the team goals and the situation, and over time, they become better at coordinating and communicating. In other words, human teams, aren't good out of the box, and we shouldn't expect a human AI team to be good out of the box either. I think you need to train with your AI, just like human dog handlers train with their specific dog for a period of time until you are doing the dance right, what they'll tell you, which has interesting implications for training working with your AI so much that your AI becomes personalized to you. So I think that's an interesting implication of that. Also, taking teaming seriously means that effective teams have team members who are interdependent and need to interact and communicate even when they can't do it directly. I know a lot of people are excited about LLMs being a teammate and take the fact that they communicate to be a signal that they can be a teammate now. But I would submit that that is not the case at all. The LLM cannot coordinate well. It doesn't get the right information to the right person at the right time when there's time-sensitive tasks to do. I think one of the things that this suggests is maybe we need to think about some language other than natural language for communicating between a human and AI. In fact, in military and aviation contexts, we use brevity code and signaling because natural language is sometimes too ambiguous for what we need. So I think that's another consideration. And finally, there's the idea of interpersonal trust. It's really important to human teams, and it needs to be considered in human AI teams as well. And this is such a rich and open area of research now to look at not just trust, but having good trust calibration and ideas about whether or not we need the trust. Is it just the behavior that's important? So all of that is an open question. And I think what I've been saying here, I'll just sum it up, that effective, making an effective human AI team requires human systems integration basically throughout the life cycle of systems development and consideration of all of these kind of principles of good teamwork applied to human AI teams. And I'll stop there.
Thank you so much. Can you, are we having another guest?
Right. We are, yeah. I'll bring him on right now.
Gotcha.
There we go.
Thanks, Nancy. Hi, Najim.
Oh, if you're talking, we can't hear you. You might be on mute. Let's see here. Seeing if there's any settings on my end that I need to change. I'm not seeing anything over here. Chengwan, are you hearing anything?
No, can't. I don't hear anything.
You want to try refreshing the browser and seeing if that helps? And maybe while Najim's doing that, we can follow up with Nancy on some other questions. Yeah, Najim, we can't hear you. Can you hear us? Give us a thumbs up.
Can you hear us? Oh, okay. So one way.
All right.
Sorry for the technical issue, Najim. Just go ahead. Okay. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Do we have another guest?
We have another one here at 6. Let's see. Where is our schedule? There it is. Ranjana Mehta is up at 6. Are you ready to present? If so, you could type it in our chat there. Otherwise, I think, okay, great. We can bring you in. And then thank you, everybody, for being so flexible here.
Thank you.
It's a live telethon.
Yeah.
What do you expect?
Things can happen. Technology is clumsy. Not Najim, not Nick, not me. Okay, please bear with us.
All right. So welcome. You're on. I think, are we going to have problems here in you too? I hope not.
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Hey, we can hear you.
Okay.
Great. Awesome.
How are you guys doing?
Doing great. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks.
Looking forward to the telethon. I've never seen one in my life,
Oh,
but I am so
me
there's
neither.
no comparison.
You're part of the historic moment.
Okay. Awesome.
And it goes along. And then do you have something to share with us, like your research yourself? And
Sure. Yeah, I can share a screen. Let me see. Allow. Can you 1 second?
Yep. Once you share that, I should be able to push it through.
Okay. Let me just do this again.
okay. In the meanwhile, please scan this QR code if you want to check what the HFES. Also, we have a promotion going on for discount and membership. So if you want to join our society, please use the promo code and then you can get a discount rate. So please join the society and become a family member. Thank you. So, Ranjana, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm trying to share screen, but this is not working out. I can talk about.
Yeah, you can talk about it. Just
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the slides are, floating on your computer.
yeah. Sure. Yeah. So I was told that it'd be really interesting for potential members to learn about some of the stuff that we do here, tech.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so let me, oh, 1 second. So window. Um, okay, I'm trying to multitask and it's not happening. So I'm going to give up. This is where technology fails you, and human factors would have really helped, right, in the design of things. So hi, everyone. I'm Ranjana Mehta. I'm a professor in industrial systems engineering at University of Wisconsin-Madison. I've been a Human Factors and Ergonomic Society member for 18 years. I did the calculation while I was listening to the previous talk by Nancy. I'm like, let me figure out how long I have been at Human Factors, because I've been at Human Factors for a very long time. So I counted. It was my second year of my PhD program. And the only reason it was the second year of my PhD program was because I didn't know what Human Factors was until my first year of the PhD program.
Got it.
And I fell in love with this discipline, with this science. And I was told by one of my roommates who was in Human Factors to come for a conference, and it was at Baltimore. The Human Factors conference was at Baltimore in 2007, I think. And so I went, and it just blew my mind. The whole gamut of I'd never done research before in my life, so that was a novelty. But then to really look at doing research to improve conditions of humans by focusing on improving systems, making those systems better for human use, it was just very interesting. I had an inkling of what I wanted to do, but I really hadn't focused on it. And so my first courses in my PhD program were at Virginia Tech. There were two courses that really blew my mind. The first one was by Tonya Smith Jackson, Dr. Smith Jackson. She's currently the provost of Rutgers University. Her course on human information processing. I didn't even know what that meant. I had to take that course because it was a requirement, and I did, and I just couldn't stop learning more about cognitive engineering since I took her course. And the second one was by Dr. Michael Madigan, was on advanced biomechanics. And so these were like two very different courses. One was sort of like neck up, one was neck down. And it really blew my mind. And I kept asking students what their research were, and they were very siloed. A lot of folks focused on sort of like cognitive engineering, didn't really took in concepts of biomechanics. And a lot of folks focused on biomechanics and work physiology and really never looked at attentional theory, visual attention, multiple resource theory. And I found that to be very odd. We are one human, we work on systems. So why don't we take a systems approach towards it? And so there started my journey on looking at mind-motor interactions and really understanding the human condition, particularly in industrial settings, to understand how sort of the psychosocial and cognitive factors can sort of interplay and interact with physical demands to induce or to sort of exacerbate musculoskeletal injuries. And as I was working on my dissertation and I started thinking, what are the methods that can help me do so? So one, very few folks have worked in this discipline, right? This interactive discipline. And as such, there wasn't really methodologies for this discipline. And so I started working on, of course, the methodologies that I was familiar with more so, which is the biomechanical methodologies. And it was very clear to me that that was a limitation of this research. If I ever had to really make an impact and make foundational contribution, we had to go beyond these siloed methodologies. And this is where, again, I had this, I don't know, sometimes in your life you have like these, I'm just going to email this guy and I'm going to take a leap of faith. I'm going to have this, very not false, but very altered sense of confidence and assertion. And I emailed Dr. Raja Parsuraman. This was right after I finished my PhD. And I told him, I've really followed your work on neuroergonomics, which is the study of brain and behavior at work. And he was taking it from a very cognitive sort of lens, like cognitive neuroscientist, focused more on cognitive aspects. And I said, I think there is something here that we can learn about musculoskeletal injuries if I adopt your methodology. And he emailed within a day. For someone like Raja to have responded to someone who's completely unknown in this human factors domain, that was very, very, I don't know, that was very heartwarming. And this is where I feel human factors community, this is where, things really are supported. We feel empowered because we have these support systems, these pillars of folks who have been doing this work for so long, but not forgetting how it is to start research. And so I met him at a conference. This was in Brazil. And it just blew my mind. There's this guy, I thought he was like this very famous person who would come and meet me. This guy with a braid, wearing a Hawaiian,
Wow.
a Hawaiian shirt, and coming in. And he spent an hour and a half at a conference just sitting with me and talking about how neuroergonomics would work for me. Can you imagine spending an hour and a half with someone completely unknown at a conference where you have so much catching up to do with, your own community? You've been friends with folks, but you spend that hour and a half with this person, and that changed my life. I spent a summer in his lab, learning more about neuroergonomics, learning more about the methodologies. I took it back to my lab. I learned neuroergonomics. I could imagine that I told him, can you consider me as an unofficial postdoc for you? Even though I had my tenure track position, I wanted I wanted to be mentored by him, and he did. And, that completely changed what I do for a living, what I do for research, and I haven't looked back. And so my research focuses on mind motor machine interaction. So you think about these complex, systems that we have at play right now. So it's not just the human in the workplace, it's human and technology. And these technologies are becoming more embodied. These technologies are perceivably or assumably having more reasoning powers, right? Like AI. We need to be able to interact with these technologies in an embodied fashion. This is where my work comes in. I look at not just mind machine interaction, but mind motor machine interactions, where the motor, the physical interactions is what forms some of these, fluent interactions and domains that require them, like emergency response. We have first responders who are on their boots on ground, and they have to make decisions while they are in these environmentally taxing conditions. And so how do you design systems for them? So that is what my research is. I've been working on utilizing augmented reality, virtual reality to create these operational aids for these first responders, using wearable technology to understand fatigue in these responders, but really with a focus on understanding what's happening in the brain, the mind, and then how does that translate to behavior. So I'm going to stop there and see if you guys have any questions.
Wow, that's an interesting story, and then thank you for sharing it with us. And then Ranjana, you can do still the braid and then wearing the Hawaiian shirt on this Aspire in Chicago. And then
That would be
you can
cool,
spend an
right?
hour and a half with another student.
Yes, that would be really cool.
All right, so we have Nancy around here. So if Nancy, can you hear us? Nancy, are you around?
Is Nancy still here? We can bring in
Right.
Yeah, I'm here
I think-
too.
Okay, so while the Najim is kind of joining, but Nancy, well, can you like share the kind of like what really kind of made you to stick to the HFES until you join? I mean, since you joined the society until now, so could be briefly.
What has made me stay?
Right, what was the main
Yeah.
reason why you kind of keep being the member of the society for a long time?
Because I think every year I look forward to connecting with these same people that have become my friends, and I really value face-to-face time these days because I get very little of it actually at work, and it's a special time that I look forward to every year.
Gotcha. So are you coming to the Aspire this year?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. Looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much for your time. So I have Najim joining today. So sorry for the technical issue. Okay, the audio. So now,
can we hear you? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Let's see.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes. Excellent. We can hear you now. Woohoo!
human.
Awesome. Glad we figured that out.
All right, Najim. So can you introduce yourself, and also can you share some of the stories with us? Yeah.
Sure. Thank you very much. Sorry for the technical glitches. I've been using solid Chrome, and the Chrome apparently doesn't like your podcast software. Yeah.
Oh, no.
But again, I'm Naj Meshkati. I'm a professor of engineering and international relations at University of Southern California. I'm so happy to be associated with Human Factors Society, then Human Factors and Ergonomics Society since 1980. I would say when I was a graduate student.
1981. I was born in that year.
You look at an old guy, my friend.
No, you're young.
No, I mean, I have really had a privilege of being a member of the society. And as my friend Tony Andre said, I met Tony Andre, as he said, when he was graduate student around 1983, 84. He looked exactly as you saw, a handsome guy with a lot of hair, very articulate. And I looked exactly like this, old, bald, and boring. But Andy, Imada, late Hal Hendrick, they have been my friends and mentors. And Peter Hancock was a colleague. We used to be in the same building. And Peter has been as articulate and as smart as ever for the last 40 years. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, so do you have any slide? Definitely you can share.
I have some slides, but I don't know if I can share it or not.
Oh, you can share it. Yeah, just again, get them up on your
but
computer.
But I gave it all these challenges. I don't know if I can do it or not because I don't know if it shares that, and I don't know what window it wants to share, and I'm totally confused with this platform. I lived on Zoom, but on this platform, I'm totally confused, and I don't know how to share my PowerPoint. But let's not to worry about the slides and that, and let's continue with this Safari, if I could get back to it. And I give you some of my life story.
Yes, please, yeah.
Yeah, because it seems that every time I want to share it, ask for authorization, I need to go to the setup, and that I'm totally challenged with this lousy user interface design that I'm dealing with. Basically, I joined Human Factors as a graduate student around right after Three Mile Island accident. Three Mile Island, if you remember, happened on March 28, 1979. And that was an accident that really changed the direction of my studies and my life. And the rest is history. Where you see me, I'm sitting here. I've been working with nuclear power industry for the last 40 years. I have been to Chernobyl. I have been to Fukushima, and since 16 other nuclear plants around the world. And for the last year, I've been appointed to this 3-member committee of the state of California called Diablo Canyon Independent Safety Committee, which is very much like a small nuclear regulatory commission. And then I've been working with oil industry from upstream drilling, middle stream to downstream refining, and I was involved in investigation of BP Deepwater Horizon. I've been working again with pipeline industry, railroad, and aviation. Last thing was I was on the FAA expert panel on Boeing that ended up testifying in Congress, in Senate on April 2024. And then last 25 years, I've been working with healthcare and patient safety. I've been a commissioner of the Joint Commission, which they accredit 25,000 hospitals and healthcare industry in the United States. What I can tell my human factors friend is preaching to a choir, but to the people that want to join,
is really, as I told the Congress, the Senate testimony, and in the boardroom of Boeing. Last week, I was in Abu Dhabi with their oil ministry. Human factors and safety culture is really cross-cutting. It applies to safety critical industry. If you are in a control room of a nuclear plant, cockpit on an aircraft, sitting in a control room of a refinery using supervisory control data acquisition system, or when you're looking at the safety culture of the utilities that they run or organization that they run this system. That's why it's not that I'm so unique, so special, so smart, because human factors, this thing that we practice and we learn, is so cross-cutting. I've been to the open heart surgery at some hospitals here, control room, cockpits, submarines, you name it, I've been there.
Wonderful, excellent. So yeah, thanks for sharing, your journey with us. So Nick, do you want to go for the Barrett's talk, or do we want to have some kind of Q&A right here?
Yeah, I think we have a little bit of
Right.
time
So
here.
yeah, we have a
We
question
can
from
catch
Ranjana.
up.
Hi, Naj. Thank you so much. It was so good to see you again today. I have a question for you. So I think your journey, your work that you have done, it's amazing. And it's also sort of, you know, almost like timely for when the events happen. So for students now who are wanting to work into the space, where they want to look at a systems perspective and sort of accident investigation and all of the work that you're looking at, what do you recommend for them? Like how do they seek opportunities where they can learn from the job as you have?
Thank you. It's so nice to see you again also, and thanks for the good question. This is what I tell my own student. I teach a course at USC called Human Factors in Engineering and Systems. It's an undergraduate upper division course. Then I have taught some graduate courses in human systems integration, safety culture, and that we have a degree also, master's degree in nuclear energy that I develop a course for that. And then I also develop a new course that would be interesting for you, which is called engineering diplomacy, and what engineering and human factors can do for foreign policy and diplomacy because of my joint appointment in international relations. What I tell all my students in this area is, first of all, there is no dull moment in human factors. You don't need to work with one industry. If you're sick and tired of nuclear power industry, which is, by the way, in an exponential growth right now, since the COP28 conference, UN Climate Change Conference, when 22 countries, they pledged that they increase their nuclear power generation by threefold by year 2050. If you don't want to work in that industry, you can work in healthcare industry. If you don't want to work in healthcare industry, you can go work for aviation industry. That's one thing. It's very versatile. The other thing is you are dealing with human. One side of your job is human. You don't do coding all day long. Basically, what I call again my student, you wouldn't be a cubicle engineer. You will be a global engineer. And the last thing is you need to develop a little thick skin, because you need to sell your expertise on that. Because this field, for whatever reason, we are 67 years old, it's not very well established yet. Like civil engineering has been around since the time of pyramid. It was not called civil engineering, it was called something else. Or electrical engineering. You need to educate people, and I say that educate people about your identity and your credibility and your knowledge, your usefulness. That was the problem that I had with, as an expert panel in Boeing. I was the only human factors guy. There was a safety culture lady from NASA. And that is something that I am so proud that I raised that in Boeing on many occasions, that one of the reasons for their demise and the crashes of 737 that killed 346 people, which they did not pay attention enough to human factors, and human factors, which at one point was a gold standard at Boeing, was eroded. And this is in our expert panel report, which is public. And this is what I think that we can make our work, our discipline. This is what I tell my students: save lives, limbs, and money. Yeah.
That's wonderful. All right. So we can do some kind of more Q&A. I mean, if Barrett, you have a question for Naj, this is time to do that. Do you have any question?
Well, I will admit the last time that I had questions for Naj, we were at the Apple Pan in Los Angeles, and that was a much better environment. No, actually, part of my question would be, what is it like to be able to nurture and mentor? I know you've had a tremendous impact on students. You've had a tremendous impact on me. And what has been what's been the motivation for continuing to work with students and younger colleagues and watching them grow up and be famous and still want to honor you?
Barrett, you are so gracious. You know that you are one of my favorites. And one of the beauty of the Human Factor Society is to meet people like Barrett, to meet people like Tony Andre, and then being nurtured, standing on the shoulder of some really giant, like the late Hal Hendrick, like Fred Muckler, many of these people. I think that somebody said that before me, and I think it was Tony Andre, that is really becoming like a family. Going to HFES annual meeting really was like a reunion, like a homecoming for me. I mean, it's not all those sessions which are exciting, interesting, and learning. One thing, my secret that I share with you is the more you grow older, the less you go to sessions at HFES, the more you hang in during the coffee time and then go to have a mellow with Peter Hancock and Bill Morris and others. This is really the best part of Human Factors, is this community, which is, by the way, is an international community, because when you end up going to International Ergonomic Association, every 3 years meeting, you meet international colleagues. And this is becoming a very important network. And being nurtured, being reared, being mentored, as I was done by Alphonse Japanese, by Aileen Wiesner. These are all unfortunately gone. In Japanese in US, Aileen Wiesner in France, many other people in other countries, and in US, and then meet young people like Tony, like Barrett, like Kim Vicente, others that they are all giants in their own rights. It's really the blessing that I have had.
Wow. Yeah. It's so amazing to see. Yeah. And hear from you. All right. So, well, I think we have Barrett, so I think you brought some interesting story for us. So please.
Well, I'm going to try.
And really quick before we do that, let's go ahead and turn over the guard. So thank you, Naj, and thank you for joining us. And Ranjana just jumped off, and Nancy. So thank you everyone for being with us. I know you're going to go man the Zoom meetings now. And all right, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Have a nice day.
All right, with that, Barrett, I'll give you the floor, and let's see here. And then we'll bring in Ron and Amrita for discussion right after you're done. Do you have slides you want to share with everybody?
Yes, I'm trying to share them. Can you see them?
Oh, I see that. Yeah,
I think we can see them now.
So because everybody's been talking so much about their personal story, in some ways I feel bad because these are like more formal slides. If anybody wants them afterwards, let me know. But the theme of postcards across time, I'm thinking about a lot because it's my birthday today, and so you see me wearing stuff from Philadelphia where I grew up.
Oh,
Happy
happy
birthday! Yeah,
birthday.
I saw the balloons and stuff.
Yeah, and yeah, so it is the last hypercubic date of probably my lifetime, where both the month, year, and day are all squares, and yeah, that's the sort of thing that I pay attention to. So I won't talk about the lab. You know, you can find out about that. But in terms of postcards, since it is my birthday and since I'm celebrating Philadelphia sports teams, the first postcard is actually from to my father. He would have been 99 this year, and in this picture, he is working with me. He taught me how to build model cars, and in fact, that is probably my first experience of the idea of systems engineering, where you have pieces and they go together. There are instructions and rules, and there's processes for what the model can teach you. And again, this is like the 1960s, and I had no idea about the Human Factor Society, as it was called then, until I was actually a faculty member. So so I think about those sorts of stories and how they influenced me growing up. But as I got older, I started to learn more about the different ways that people have influenced the disciplines. That was one of the reasons why I asked Naj the question I did, because these connections that people have and their ability to send messages over time are really, really crucial, but you don't really know it at the time. So let me start with a brief discussion of Alexander von Humboldt. He was probably one of the first great describers and scholars of ecological systems and systems dynamics. He lived at the beginning of the 19th century. He was doing research that was at times interrupted by the Napoleonic Wars. But he went to the Americas and evaluated the flora, the fauna, the geography, the ecological dynamics that were affected by human habitation and deforestation. This is a picture of a sculpture of him in Brazil, where they're showing a globe where he's touching South America in the area of Ecuador, where he became very, very well known for developing one of the great maps of ecological zones. And it's said that when he was writing all of his books about ecological systems, you know, people thought of him as the inventor of our current understanding of nature, so much that 40, 50 years later, when Charles Darwin was getting ready to go on the Beagle to go to the Galapagos, he was worried about whether or not he would have space for all of his research books. And the captain said, "Of course, we will let you take your copy of Humboldt, 7-volume set," because that was the level of respect that scholars and practitioners and explorers had for him throughout decades and now even centuries. So I think about stories like that. I could talk about obviously people like Amelia Earhart and Lillian Gilbreth. This is a program for a conference that was held in Lafayette, associated with Purdue in 1937. And when people talk about Amelia Earhart's round the world flight and her comments about she needed to get back to the United States. Her next agenda schedule was What's Next in the Air on Friday, July 2nd, 1937. And if you're a fan of history, you know that she disappeared in the Pacific roughly July 1st. There's actually Purdue alums that are engaged in an expedition to find some of the remnants of the Lockheed Electra and maybe Miss Earhart herself, partially because it's Purdue Research Foundation plane, so we kind of want it back. I was in DragonCon last month and found this wonderful set of artworks, which I think of as my goddesses of the information age. The Voyager satellites, Perseverance and Ingenuity, and 3 of the women that helped create our modern information age. Ada Lovelace for computer software, Grace Hopper understanding computer systems and the ability to recognize bugs, literally a moth in her case, and Hedy Lamarr, the actress who actually helped invent the mathematical bases for what we currently use as multi-hop systems for Wi-Fi. You know, I could keep going about all of these things. I don't want to spend lots of time talking about all of this. I have lots of discussions that I could have, but some people ask me about, well, what's the current thing that's hot? What's the current thing that's famous? What is it that I want to work on? I sometimes want to show them pages like this that was from a research paper that we published in the mid-1990s. And I want to give your attention to the discussion of computer group interaction and advanced email. And that's because we didn't have web browsers when this paper was written. So there was no better term for what it was that we were discussing. Sometimes you get lucky, and sometimes you are able to send that postcard, and decades later, people are still thinking about the topics and the questions that you raised. That's the sort of thing that we would like as researchers to be able to do. I was able to do some of that with some of my grad students, like Sandra Garrett, who's now at Clemson, doing some teaching. She gave us this idea of managing events and resources, and I use this type of graphic today to talk about project management with my own students, and we continue to use that as a reference for how to think about managing projects moving forward. I spend a lot of time these days working on spaceflight, and there was this great conversation as we talk about how to move forward into human exploration of the moon and Mars. And one of the questions was, okay, we can use these language models and algorithms to try to test hypotheses based on our experience, but how do we, as our human automation teammates, learn how to take a new experience and generate new generations of hypotheses? And the people who learn to figure this out will influence our ability to learn and explore for centuries to come. And I think that would be a tremendously valuable thing to be able to gather as a human factors community. So I think I'll stop there, but I think Naj said this very well beforehand. If I've seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants, quote from Isaac Newton. So thank you all very much. I will stop there.
Thank you. Thank you for being our giant.
Let's bring in a new panel of folks here.
Sounds great. Hi,
all
Amrita.
right, get a new round of folks in. There we go.
Ron. Hello. Hi, Ron. Hi, Amrita.
Hey.
Howdy.
Hello. How are you doing today?
Great. Enjoying this amazing panel.
It's very, I'm coming from the industry perspective, but community, family, and literally having the support of titans in academia and industry is what this society is all about. And even before I can introduce myself, as Amrita Maguire, who works at Dell Technologies as a distinguished member of technical staff, I can say that it is because of this community that I worked with one of my HFES friends who works down the road in a competitive business, and we influenced standards and brought in visual ergonomics into data center media, like drives, right? That will stay in place for the next 20 years. And that collaboration was funny because it's convincing 67 companies, a consortium of companies like Google and NVIDIA, what we think is the best for visual ergonomics and writing a part of their standards. And that shows how these two people, you know, from two small little companies or two big companies, depending on who you're talking to, influenced human factors and ergonomics in industry. And guess what do these drives go? They go in all the AI servers and the HPC high performance compute data centers. So it's a very small thing, but looking for a needle in a haystack, like a blinking light on a 10 millimeter wide drive to help a user when something's wrong is critical, right?
Yeah.
And when it's only 10 millimeters, you can't really engineer out and say, I want a bigger LED. You can't. So Melissa Meingas from HPE and I will be presenting on how competitors collaborate. And it's because of the Houston HFES community, even though I'm in Austin, you know, and I'm an Aggie, I'm not an owl, and I'm not a Longhorn, but we all get together, we forget about those things and contribute to ergonomics. And here, of course, I see a lot of mentors. And I started out doing research for an NSF ergonomics center at A&M long time ago. It was Carter Kirk, Dr. Carter Kirk, who brought me into ergonomics from biomedical engineering. And I've worked in the automotive industry, computer, workstations, and now data center infrastructure, direct liquid cooling servers. So all these tools, you get to innovate when you go to these conferences. I've actually attended other of Nick's podcasts with other companies and learned about things, you know. So it's this community, and that is what it offers students. It's an opportunity to have a professional community that stays with you and you can grow. Yes, volunteer. And now I'm the US chair. I serve as the US chair for one of the technical committees, ergonomics in the physical environment. So it's all about HFES bringing stellar things to my work experience and creating the journey that is very fulfilling, because nothing makes you feel rewarded when you can give back.
Wow. Yeah. Thanks for sharing your amazing story with us. So, all right. So we have Ron. So Ron, you know, I see
Okay,
you.
I'm gonna start with a story here, which is my first HFES. And because Barrett talked about standing on the backs or the shoulders of greats, this was the HFES right after 9/11 in Minneapolis. And I was the sole person from my university. I was in a PhD program in cognitive science. I had been won over to human factors, but it was my first time actually making it to the conference. So I show up in this very strange environment. Remember, the airports had, you know, we had military people there. You're afraid to go in the streets, and I'm shy. Okay, and I walk into this conference, and Barrett Caldwell makes me an honorary member of his lab. So I'm an honorary grouper, and I also happen to be. I think the way we actually met is through the roommate service. So I was a poor student, right? And so I, you know, signed up to room with some complete stranger who happened to be Enli Wang, who is one of Barrett's PhD students.
Oh.
And so Enli and I actually hit it off very well. And although I can assure you the nickname Snoring Boring didn't come from that, being a roommate with him. And then he introduced me to Barrett, and he introduced me to the rest of his community, including Sandra Garrett. And these have become lifelong friends. And I was so welcomed by Barrett that I got hooked on HFES. You know, there was no question that I wasn't going to come back, and that these weren't my people, right? And so I just want to acknowledge that step that Barrett did, you know, just being a nice guy. And every HFES we meet and we have long discussions, and I value those, and I think about those throughout the year. And of course, I keep in touch with my peers, these lifelong friends like Sandra and Enli. So, and I want to mention because I was poor as a student, I signed up as a student volunteer, and I'm trying to figure out what to do. And they said, well, do you want to write the minutes for the meetings? So I'm automatically enlisted with all these greats who are conducting the HFES business. And so, you know, my encouragement to any students or anybody new in the game is just find opportunities to get involved. Come talk to me. I'm kind of a stoic Nordic guy, so, you know, I don't know if I look friendly or not. Barrett's definitely nice, right? Go talk to him, because he will embrace you, and you'll even get a little pin for your lanyard, a Grouper Lab pin. I don't know if you're prepared to you know, give out hundreds of those, Barrett, but I'll make a donation to the cause. So I just want to say, I'm Ron Boring. I'm a distinguished scientist at Idaho National Lab in Human Factors. And HFES has been my home, right? This is the community I value. I look forward to conversations that are interrupted by a year in between. I have a whole group of friends. Unfortunately, my wife has decided not to come to these conferences anymore, not because I'm doing anything dubious, of course, but because it's so busy, right? You're catching up with these people you haven't seen in a year, right? And that's just a wonderful thing. And then you're going to sessions and you're picking up new ideas. And this is what keeps, you know, this is what fuels me for the year ahead. So, you know, I can't say enough positive about HFES. I've had opportunities to grow in various leadership roles, also through Barrett's acknowledging at some point, Ron, do you want to come help with the conference, with the annual meeting? And started to get me enlisted. And at one point, I was the chair for the meeting. I took over a role. There were a few people in between, but I took over a role that I think Barrett had when I first met him. So, so this is, I go to other conferences, and I don't have that same sense of community. I think HFES is, it's a group of like-minded individuals, and it's not just about going to present your research or going to some exotic location. It's about actually meeting people, connecting, furthering your ideas, right? And so we're bigger than I know it's a little bit of a cliche, but we're definitely bigger than the sum of our parts. And I think nowhere is that more evident than at HFES. So I hope that was a quick enough introduction.
Oh yeah, that was.
I had to jump in there and praise Barrett because he's been such an influence on me. And I'll just mention he came to visit me at one point when I was in Albuquerque, and I remember the great disappointment when Barrett saw that I was driving a minivan. So he got over the disappointment, you know, and we've moved on. But he definitely wants to drive his car if we meet somewhere.
Oh, wow.
So imposter syndrome, you know, be careful when you go and meet these greats you love and they realize you drive a minivan. So anyway.
What you got against minivans there, Barrett?
I did drive a minivan at a particular version in time in my life, but I like driving, and I like human-centered driving. And my minivan drove like a cow. And I like more responsive things like classic sports cars with 50-50 weight balance.
Wow. That's
And go to HFES, the annual meeting, and you will have an hour-long conversation with Barrett about cars. And then we'll switch to communication patterns in aerospace. And you'll be, that'll fill up the whole week in a good way.
wow.
There you go. So Ron, you brought a talk with us today, right?
I did.
You brought a talk with you?
Let me see if I can pull it up. It is not as personal. Nick's been trying to interview me for a long time, and I avoid it because I don't like talking about.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I see him. I chase him
Finally.
down.
What? Who are you, Nick?
No, what?
Okay, let me see if I can figure out how to share this. Let's see.
This guy. Yeah, go ahead and share it. I'll bring it up when I see it.
I'm just trying to figure out which. Oh, there's more. Okay, I was like, I don't see PowerPoint on here. This is just give me a second here. Why do I not?
Oh, good. Live telethon. While you're doing that, I'll just remind everybody.
Yes.
I'll just remind everybody, if you're watching, you can leave comments about your experience with HFES. You can also scan the QR code up in the top left to do some membership renewal or to sign up if you're new. And folks who have been on this telethon are hanging out over on Zoom waiting your calls. So, Ron, did you share it? I'm not seeing it on my end yet.
Ta-da.
Ta-da. There it is. All right, perfect.
Here we go. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to try to not make this too long because I'd rather have conversations with Amrita and Barrett here. But this is something that I have gotten really interested in. And let me just give you some background. So this is virtual assessment of humans. And we could subtitle this is, do we still need humans and human factors to do human factors? Okay. And this is kind of accidental. We stumbled upon something here. So, I got my little thing here of what I think we do in human factors. We design, we prototype, evaluate, user-centered design and all of that. But what we're seeing is we're starting to see tools like Figma or Google's AI Studio, or if you do control systems, inductive automations, Ignition, and they're allowing you to prompt engineer your interfaces, right? And that's a very interesting development. They're not quite there yet, but give them a year, right? I mean, we've all seen generative AI emerge in the last few years. And, is this taking jobs from UX people? Is this taking jobs from designers? Certainly it will be, right? And so that gives us the design and prototype element. But what about the evaluation, right? And so this is where I started getting interested in virtual evaluation. And I'll skip the verification and validation. I have my own definitions of that. But verification is comparing to some standard, right? Validation, I consider human in the loop, and feel free to disagree with that. And so virtual just adds some sort of model of that. So virtual verification would be where you're comparing your interface. You could compare it against Nielsen's heuristics or something much more complex like a MIL standard 1472. Virtual validation though gets us into this idea of virtual human in the loop, right? And so we in human factors, one of the tools of our trade is human in the loop studies. We love to evaluate, right? Of course, if we have knowledge of something that exists, we use that, we apply that, but often we're in these first of a kind scenarios where we really do need to test it. And the question is, do we need to test actual humans, or could we test virtual humans, okay? And that's a very intriguing place to be. Again, won't bore you too much. I just pulled in some slides that were approved. But this is the part that I'm trying to focus on now. Virtual human interacts with the system to produce synthetic human performance data, right? You go to AI things and you hear about synthetic data. Well, what about synthetic human performance data? And so I'm calling that virtual human in the loop. And here's our simulator that we use. And basically, to make all of this work, we use a simulator, we use a procedure system, which is kind of the intermediary between the human and the simulator. And then we have our virtual operator, okay? And I won't spend too much time on this, but this is a unique thing. I work in the domain of nuclear, okay? And nuclear is so proceduralized that we try not to deviate from the procedures, right? And so we've created a simplified simulator, microworld simulator. Think of that as your car simulator, except it's a nuclear power plant simulator. That's what it looks like, variants of that. Okay, nice thing, you know, and it's free to universities, by the way. Rancor integrated procedure system is a type of thing where we can present the procedures, we can present different types of information, we can have the operators use that. It's great for data logging. And then we figured out, wait a minute, we have all the procedures in here. We seldom deviate from the procedures, so we can actually run the system. We can automate it, okay? Except I work in the area of human error. So our automation system is imperfect, right? It takes things like stress into account or fatigue, okay? So it's not a perfect automation system. It is a system that's degraded to reflect human performance, okay? And so that's how you get some of these interesting things where you have that virtual operator, virtual human in the loop. So here's our full scope simulator, human system simulation lab, and then our virtual operator we call Hunter, because we're in Idaho. No, never mind. Human unimodel for nuclear technology to enhance reliability. By the way, it is a vegan Hunter. We do not want to kill anything with this Hunter, okay? And so, but your human system simulation lab, that's your digital twin. It's a virtual plant. And then by adding the virtual operator, you have your digital human twin. Okay, and we'll throw a pretty version of a human in there. I used to throw the Terminator in this slide, and nobody liked that. They were like, well, what are you trying to do there? Are you trying to destroy something? What, with a product named Hunter? Does that sound aggressive? No. Okay, and so you put these two together, and that's how you have virtual validation, because you're having this virtual operator run through the same types of scenarios with a functional simulator, and then you can test this out. And I have a talk coming up at HFES. I'll make a plug for that, for how we use that to control levels of automation. So we've created a levels of automation test bed. That's a really powerful thing to be able to test. When do you adapt automation? When do you change? What are the limits of this for a control system? Okay. And with that, I'll just show, don't worry too much about this, but I call virtual human in the loop VITL. Why would I possibly call it that? Well, because we have human in the loop and virtual human in the loop. Just means I watched too much Beverly Hillbillies in my youth. And so VITL is, of course, a Southern word for food. You hunt and you get food. I don't know. So don't worry about that. Maybe it's time to retire my acronyms. And so, but is there a need for virtual validation? So can we test all human interactions with emerging technology using human in the loop methods? And this is one of the things as we go into advanced reactors or any advanced technology, we are really limited on, can we test every possible permutation, every possible interaction? That is a real concern. We're going from largely analog control rooms in nuclear to systems that are potentially automated. And we have emerging contexts coming out of that. And so I'm really worried about our ability. How many years do we have to sit operators in simulators and see if this particular interaction works or doesn't work, because we don't have room for error. So the idea of this is, can we use this as kind of a Monte Carlo type of testing thing? I'm not looking, and that's the virtual human in the loop, I'm not looking to replace humans. I'm looking to use this as a tool to screen those interactions that might be problematic, so we can really focus our efforts on those red flag areas, okay? We don't take away human in the loop. There's that, you know, the value of human in the loop is immeasurable. We can get details that we certainly don't think our simulation tools can get, but we can maybe identify where we actually need to do that research. And so with that, that was about a 3-hour talk in 5 minutes. So hopefully you digested something from that. And we can stop sharing and get into some conversation.
So,
well done.
Ron, it brings up the argument that people sometimes lose focus on is it's about augmenting human intelligence. It's about enabling. It's about taking away the mundane, repetitive tasks that we as humans make more errors with, whereas machines don't. So, you know, it's a win-win if we get the partnership right. The talk of your digital twin and your digital hunter, you know, doing the virtual assessments. Can you imagine how many hours of simulation you can cut down in terms of the human in the loop having to check boxes that should automatically check at meta criteria, at meta spec, for somebody to manually go check those boxes? Why do that, right? When we can automate that. And then it learns and it becomes smarter. And then we go and pull in Ranjana's neural networks and we're working at functional MRIs, and then we're really cooking, right?
So Nick's alma mater, University of Idaho, stopped inviting me in because I said, basically, my point is we need to, as students, we're all students in some level of human factors, but we need to be evolving these methods because the technology around us is evolving so rapidly. And so if you're coming in with that core skill set, I think there's still a core role for UX and usability testing, but it might need to evolve, right? And we might need to use some of these same tools that we're testing. We might need to use AI to improve upon that. Another great example of this is, you talk about levels of automation, and one of our fears is engagement, and we lose, the automation paradox. We lose engagement, and so one of my colleagues, a postdoc, has been working on computer vision to detect engagement levels. She's not the only one who does this, certainly, but this is the type of thing we need, right? Nothing against my situation awareness or my workload batteries, my subjective measures, but we might need something that could not just rely on subjective self-assessment. We might need things that can actually detect that. And so we need to get smarter about some of our tools.
Wonderful.
Until we're put out of work. No, sorry, we don't want that to happen.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Barrett, I'm sure I've incited something there. I know you too well for you to say quietly there.
This is one of the other things that we haven't really talked about as much, but I think it's an important piece because I've got a student who's working on a project that I need to talk to you about the project because it includes this very directly, this idea of virtual human in the loop, digital experiments. And one of the things that's been so good, I mean, I wasn't a member of HFES until after I started my faculty career. And some of my best research ideas and best research elaborations came at the annual meeting. After a session in the lobby, on the way to some technical tour or something like that. And even now, after all these years, it's like, Ron, I need to talk to you about this because I've got this idea, and maybe we can figure out how to work on this, or maybe something that my student is doing could actually help make some progress in some of your project. And recognizing that these collaborations, you were saying such a good version of it, the collaborations even among competitors is so crucial. We're a very small society, and so the ability to work with each other instead of just competing in our small little garrets is really, really vital.
Gotcha.
I'm going to make a plug for Figma. Figma has Figma Make, and that's the AI tool of Figma. And I will say to any students, even those in industry and academics and practitioners, seasoned, long in the tooth practitioners, are just learning about Gen AI, right? So go out, play with the tools, avail of the free student licenses, get all the tools ready so that when you're looking for jobs or you're looking for projects, you have something in your toolbox that distinguishes you and shows you moving into the AI adoption and accelerating your adoption with Gen AI tools.
This telethon brought to you by Figma.
No. Disclaimer, I work for Dell Technologies.
I'm kidding.
No Figma, but I'm just saying it's one of the many tools, right?
Powered by nuclear energy. There we go.
Powered by small modular nuclear reactors.
Exactly.
Powered by microreactors. No kidding. Oh no, they don't want microreactors though, do they, Ron? They want the big.
Yeah,
the
no,
big
I mean, they're
ones.
hungry, right? Our data centers are very hungry, right? So.
One of the things that I love about this moment that just happened is that our first talk today was Gary Klein talking about insights. And so what Barrett and what you and Ron just talked about is these moments of insight that happen in experiences with members of HFES. And I've certainly had it happen at the big meetings. I've had it happen at the local meetings. I've had it happen, in just so many different places that I think that's one of the things for me that I get so much out of is just, but I had to be together with those people face to face talking about, and sometimes it's just BSing. It's not even some sort of intentional, oh, well, we need to start a collaboration. It's not this whole problem space that we're working on. It's just something that, we're in that, mode, and and all of a sudden something just connects. And, well, if we did this or that, these things seem very similar. And it's lightning in a bottle. And, at the bar or and it's just, those are things that can't be replicated on a webinar, and it has to be face to face. And one of the things that's on the crawl here too is the local meetings. And so we're doing now this regional event, so that, because some people can't go to the annual event, it's expensive, and it's a week. And so, and I know that for me, the Houston HFES, as Anrita was talking about, is just like the annual meeting. It fundamentally changed my career, and so we want to be able for people to have those lightning in a bottle moments locally, as well as the national meeting and the healthcare meeting. And so, and then this. I think this is exciting to be able to see people together, listening to what each other is looking at and thinking about, and then being able to talk with each other about what they're thinking about and what they're, just stewing over. And so that's been very exciting too, to hear about. And so we're wrapping up. We're about 5 minutes till the end. And I think this has just been, I know I've just been thrilled to be able to hear and see all of these amazing giants of HFES. And Chinwan and Nick, thank you both so much for doing a fantastic job of moderating and trying to wrangle these cats. And so I just want to thank everybody that participated in this. And so I think we'll be, so Nick has recorded this, so this is going to be available for people to look at later. And we're going to be repurposing this too, as part of National Ergonomics Month. And so seeing how we can leverage this and make sure, because this has been a very, very special event, and the people that have been on here and the ideas and thoughts, the history and the future that has been shared. And so we want to make sure that people get to continue to share it. And if this is important to you, if these kinds of thoughts, these kinds of opportunities are important to you, you want to see this continue, become a member. There's all different kinds of levels to be a member at. And we'd love for you to come play with us. We have a good time. It's a lot of fun. And so with that, I think, any last words? Nick, Chengwan, anybody else?
Well, it was a great event. I think, yeah, well, thank you very much for taking your time. And then, well, I really enjoyed, not just, because I moderate this, but it was so, much pleasure to hear the kind of legendary story of the HFES. And then that story must go, go down to the history. And then this show must go on. So please, let's continue our work in the future. So, yeah, I really appreciate that. Nick.
I'll just mention that if you're watching this after the live event, that QR code won't work. It's not going to lead you to the Zoom chat.
Good information.
Although, Camille, is there anything that folks who might be watching this after the fact, can they still get any benefit from signing up with HFES membership?
We'll look into that. I think that's a great point. And so we can put that on the page that is on the scroll, the membership page. If they come from this and see it, maybe we can have some special discounts for that. And so, but definitely this week. So until tomorrow, the discount code is available. So not tomorrow, until Sunday. So you've got till Sunday for the discount code. And so not only do you get a discount code on membership, but that means you get a discount code on if you're coming to Aspire or if you're coming to the healthcare, so that it really gives you a lot of, it's going to be worth the buck. And so that's till Sunday for sure. And then we'll look into seeing what kind of discount code we can do if somebody knows the secret code from this particular event. So we'll do that.
Next question. When can we do this again?
Yeah, right. We'll have our postmortem and see what, when, how. And yeah, I agree. This is fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you to all the guests, and anyone else on the panel want to say any last words here?
Just to say that my career is my career because of the relationships I developed and sustained through the society. So yeah.
There we go.
I'll say as a student coming in 20 something odd years ago to my first conference to finally being inducted as a fellow at the HFES, that journey would not have happened without the support of this professional society and all my mentors and peers, who are far too many to mention, but all of them were here today.
I would just add, keep learning. I mean, again, it's a very dynamic time in terms of technology. And the best place I have found to keep on top of everything that we can do from a human factors perspective is to be part of this society. And it doesn't matter what your age. My birthday was 2 days ago, Barrett. So there we go. This is a good birthday month. It doesn't matter what your age. It's never too late to actually benefit from what the society offers.
Right. And make the good acronyms.
Yes. Help me come up with a better acronym, please.
I can do that. I can help.
It'll be a thing.
So with that, are we going to see each other in Chicago?
Yeah. Absolutely.
In a couple weeks time? All right.
Let's go.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
With that, thanks everybody for tuning in, and thank you for supporting us on our first live telethon. Until we meet again in Chicago.
Bye.
Bye.